Welcome.
Hey, what's up, man? I got a microphone, unfortunately. Hopefully, that's still fine.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, cool.
Just a little echoey, but it's totally fine. You are on a laptop though, or are you just on phone?
Oh, no, I'm on a laptop.
Nice, perfect. Because I got to show you some videos later on, and so that works even better.
Okay.
Welcome to the show, Marcus Cardona.
Hey, what's up?
How would please give a proper pronunciation of your last name?
Oh, no, you crushed it, man. Cardona, that's it.
Okay, cool. For some reason, I feel like when I first met you, I would add a Z in.
Oh, yeah, I feel like you did like a tilde thing just because like everyone thought I was like Spanish or Latino, so it'd be like Cardona. I was like,
Yeah,
nope.
and because you're Filipino, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is a common not mix up, but the Spanish fucked over the Philippines so bad that it changed their last names.
Yeah, man. It's Catholic first names and then Spanish last names, so that's what happens.
Um, Welcome. You're in New York or Maine?
Right now, I'm working in Brooklyn, but I'm in Maine basically. I'm not. I'm like because the pandemic threw me back to Maine. I'm just here when I'm working, and then
Oh,
while living
cool.
here. Yeah.
Are you just stay with friends, or are you still keep your
Yeah.
place?
I'm subleasing a friend's place right now. He's in Chicago, so.
Oh, nice. One first thing I wanted to ask you about was you are the man who saved comedy in Maine during the pandemic.
Dude, it was Dave Chappelle did it there, and then Maine is full of doomsday preppers, so I'm just like, I could do that there. I'm like, the numbers are low. It's just outside. I just need to find a spot.
Yeah, and so how did you get? Because Thompson's Point is like, isn't that owned by like a big group or something?
Yeah, basically what ended up happening was once I was in Maine and I was asking everyone what they were doing. I was asking like the Portland Comedy Co-op, that's gonna be Connor McGrath, Rachel Gedrin, Anders Nielsen, and all of them over there, what
Yeah,
they were doing.
Connor's
Uh,
been on the show before.
yep, same as Rachel and Anders. I talked to Mark Turca from the main event comedy, what he was doing. No one was doing anything. So I'm like, okay. And pretty much like I still had to come down to New York for work. And I was like going to shows like in parks and on rooftops. And I'm like, it's so condensed there. And I'm just like, oh, I'm like, this isn't bad. And then I'm just like, okay, I just need to convince Maine to do it. And all I did was email Thompson's Point, and then they were like, yeah. If you,
Oh,
pitched
nice.
them, I pitched them like the whole thing. Like I'm a comedian from Brooklyn, and then I also reached out to Lucas because I'm like, no one really knows who I am, but I'm like, as long as I have something like affiliated with Maine, like at least I get to tie the two together.
And it's good for him and them, like as long as they're going to be able to open back up, is like, hey, it's like advertising for them. You come to the show and hear about that Maine does have a comedy club, and when if they can open back up at some point, they'll be able to. It's the same thing with what Stand Up New York is doing and stuff. Like you're just advertising better for the club by being the ones who are putting on the show still.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then Maine, it's like they like Maine, like we just expanded like the indoor capacity, but Lucas doesn't want to do anything until I think they're going to try aiming for like a March for the first shows next year.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, I was wondering what inside, because let's see, here we don't have any inside stuff.
yeah,
Every restaurant or anything has to be outside, but that's easy to do. I mean, they can do that all year here.
yeah, exactly.
That's where I felt bad for like New York is like in 2 months, like you can't have a fucking outside show.
Yeah, exactly. It's already like at that point. Like even we're expanding the main show into November, and I'm like, luckily, I'm like, they asked me, I'm like, what are we gonna do when it gets that cold? I'm like, oh, Mainers have done less for like Black Friday shopping, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice. Is there any possibility to have like heaters, or do they have fire pits or anything?
Yeah, they have the fire pits right now. So our next show, we're gonna be doing like a free hot cider with them, and then just like do the show like an hour and a half real quick.
Yeah.
Not keep them out too long.
Yeah. Yeah, because that could be not be, I mean, you definitely want to dress for it, so it could be but you could do November with a fire.
Yeah.
um and yeah, other than that, how you been, man? We haven't talked since probably
Yeah, your last trip to New York.
yeah, I don't know if that was my last time I was in New York, but yeah, we met up that time. I was doing some shows down there.
Yeah, you're doing a show at like Pink's or something like that, and
I
then
did
yeah,
Pink's,
yeah.
yeah. And I don't think it was that time. Another time before that, I did the Knitting Factory in Gotham. I think those are the only Knitting Factory and Gotham were the only two like real places in New York I did, and then others were just like that, like Rohan. You know Rohan?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he had that show in the back of that coffee shop for a while.
Was it the coffee shop or the pizza shop?
I think it was a coffee shop because it was
Okay, cool.
closed. They
I
got
got
the
you.
guy to open it up and let them have a show in the back after the cafe had closed.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't. I would go down to New York here and there, but I didn't. I've never done a lot in New York.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you were doing like the Wander bus. Is that still
Yeah.
that's still going on, right?
Oh no, the on the road in the bus.
Yeah, yeah.
No, we actually sold the bus.
Okay.
We did a year, just about. I think it was maybe 11 months, straight living in it, going all over the country, and then a little over 2 years ago, we moved officially to LA and got a place and everything. And then right before COVID, we sold the bus. Thank
Okay.
God, because nobody would have come and looked at that. Like I mean, maybe now, like with everybody being like, I want to, go RV and explore the country, we might have been able to
Yeah.
sell it, but we needed the money to move and stuff too. And it was like, we sold it like March 6th, and then everything got fucking locked down.
then the NBA shut down, and you're just like, thank God, thank
Yeah.
God, thank God.
And the kid who took it, the kid who bought it, his goal was to do that, but like with his friends, they were going to convert it a little more so that like 4 people could sleep in there. And he didn't ask any fucking questions about it. He was like a young kid, and like all the shit that I was ready to be like, okay, so this you might need to get this, and this you might. And he's like, here's the cash, I can just take it, right? And I'm like, you don't want to know anything? He's like, no. I'm like, see ya.
That is funny.
But yeah, how's it been in? So you just because of COVID, you started going back up to Maine and
Yeah,
staying
yeah.
there, but you've been in New York otherwise.
No, I've been in Maine since March. I pretty much put all my stuff in storage.
Yeah. No,
And
I
then
mean you've been before March. You've just been in New York since I saw you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Before March, yeah, I was in New
Yeah.
York the whole time. I was setting up like tours and stuff like that, and like just trying to like do like the next thing. I was trying to set up road gigs because I was still planning on recording my album or half of my album in November at Empire, ironically. And then even Lucas was like, "Oh, you know what? Credits don't really matter." I'm like, "I'm not sure if you could sell out," and I'm like, "Okay." So it was like a weird twist because now I have a following in Maine. I'm
Yeah.
like, "All right, cool."
How's New York been? Pre-COVID, how are you digging the scene there and stuff?
The scene's super fun. Like it definitely like has its like levels. I feel like it's every other like city scene. Like there's like the certain level of like regular comedy nonsense for bookings, like the indie scene, the credited scene, like
Yeah.
the club scene. Like everything varies, and New York really has like that big variety. Because I was a big advocate for the indie scene. Because I always felt like the indie scene, like especially now during the pandemic, everyone who's doing park shows that's not a club are like the indie shows are like way better than like the club shows
Oh yeah.
because I'm like it's comics who like already had like the small followings in like the different parks and areas, so they have like a more engaged audience.
Yeah.
While like the stand-up scene, like they have their audience, but it's not as engaged. Sometimes it's just like people stumbling across, or like it's still random tourists, which is funny because I didn't think that tourism in New York would be like still
Yeah.
as popping.
And it's just who's going on vacation right now? Like, what do you do? Like, let's go to the fucking epicenter where it was the worst for a
Yep.
while. That's like going on a tour of fucking Chernobyl or something. But then too, yeah, like who right now is like, you know what we need is a good old fashioned New York fall. Like,
we need to see some people hula hooping in a park while comedy attempts to happen.
So because this is the topic of the show, and we sometimes talk about it, sometimes don't, bicycling.
Yeah.
We've just recently got a car, but still ride a bike, and for just about almost 2 years was solely riding a bike around LA. Do you bike in New York?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the comedian dream, man. You got to have your plan. You need a workout between like because you're just sitting at clubs. You got to bike to different clubs and venues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's nice to get a workout in, and then especially in like Manhattan because all the comedy clubs are like bikeable instead of sitting on the subway or waiting for a subway delay or something like that.
Do you have your own bike or do you use a city bike?
No, I have my own bike. I brought one from Maine, and then it's in storage right now. But yep, just a classic 6 speed
Okay,
road
like
bike.
a 6-speed roadish bike,
Yeah, it's a road
smaller
bike. Yeah,
tires. Nice.
yeah,
Um, because I go out here, one because there's plenty of trails too, like as you go up into the mountains. But I ride mountain bike because a lot of the roads are fucking terrible. And
oh
at
yeah.
first, I had a fixed gear, and just like you blow tires and shit all the time because it's like between trash and or just like fucking gaping holes in the road. So I go like it's definitely slower, but it's a lot easier to fucking ride.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. Yeah. So wait, you went from road bike and then you just mountain bike now. Are you
Yeah.
like a Are you a big hill? Do you like bomb hills a bunch?
Um, I mean, a little bit. I've ridden it. I mostly ride around the city, and then some on trails. A lot of it's weird. Some of the trails here, there's only certain parks or certain areas where you can go where you can ride bikes. Like Griffith Park, you're not allowed to ride a bike in, even though some of those trails would be fucking awesome for it. But it's walking only. But I have ridden it from. I don't know how well you know LA at all. Have you been out here
Yeah,
before?
yeah. I've been to LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
I rode it one time from Burbank to the Improv on Melrose in Hollywood. And that you had to go like over the Hollywood Hills and come down the Coanga Pass. And the only part that was a little sketchy was coming down the hill like right by the Hollywood Bowl because there's no sidewalk to ride on to be safer. There's no fucking lights and there's barely a breakdown lane. And you're on like the 2-lane road that's next to the highway that is like almost a highway in itself. And that was the only part that was a little
So
sketchy.
you're just like, Chet, do you have mirrors on your bike, or are you big like
No,
turner?
no. I mean, it was at night, so at least you could see lights coming and shit.
Yeah.
But it was just a small section. And I only did it once because I had the time, where I was just like, let me see if you can just ride from the valley into down into Hollywood, and it was pretty easy and it's pretty flat. And going that way is a lot easier because the mountain going over the Hollywood Hills, it's shorter on the coming from the valley down into Hollywood. Where going the other way, the fucking hill is a lot bigger.
That's what's up. And you got to did you get to bike in New York while you were here, or no?
No, I never have. So when we traveled around the country, though, I had a bike with me, and I biked in so many fucking cities all
Yeah,
over. But
yeah,
I've never done New York. But I have seen it, and taking a look because when I would come down from Boston, I mainly biked around Boston, so I would come down and either skateboard or walk around New York. But I would take notice of like how easy. There's a couple places where it's not bad in Brooklyn and in Manhattan where like I think it's Broadway, maybe they have a protected bike lane for a
yeah.
bunch of it. It's like on the other side of the parked cars. And so like going north south, there's like a couple of channels you can take and then you just kind of go up that road and then turn off it. But it's still, you got to keep a sharp eye out for fucking pedestrians, doors, cars, all that shit.
Oh yeah, dude, you gotta be aware of everything. Actually, like my third year in, I got hit by a lady, and I was like biking next to her, and she saw me, but she just like decided to make a sharp turn, and then I was already late for work, and like she didn't like speak English, so I was like, okay, she doesn't have insurance, I don't have insurance. I'm like, all right, I'm still alive, no damage to the bike. All right, I'll see you.
You
Bye.
just oh, damn. What did she speak?
She spoke Spanish, but she was like
Okay.
she was pretty much trying to throw like she was trying to say that she didn't have insurance, but she didn't see me. But it was like also like I was like right next to her, so when she turned, it was like a quick ding, but it was enough to like knock me off my balance.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I got hit one time in Portland, by a car. I was behind them, and then they pulled to the side, and I thought they were pulling. It was right in front of Maine College of Art, and
Yeah.
I thought they were pulling over to park, and so I went to go around them, and what they did is they pulled out and then did a U-turn.
Ooh.
And just as I was coming around, and they hit my back tire out from under me, and I like flew up, land on my back, hit my head. Didn't have a helmet on, didn't have a
Ooh.
shirt on. Fucking scratched up my back. Definitely got a concussion. But I was also late for work and on my way to work, and I just got up and grabbed my bike and was like, I gotta go to work, and I just fucking walked off with it. And I was working at the public market then, and I got there and was standing there for like a minute, and then I just turned to my boss. I was like, I think I'm fucked up. I think I gotta go to the hospital. I got hit by a car.
Why is it always like a work situation with
I
bikes that
know
we're just
too.
like
Because what they were doing was illegal. Like you can't just pull a fucking U-turn
yeah
like that. So I could have never had to work again. I could
yeah
that
yeah
that could have milked the shit out of that, and I was just fucking just like, see ya, drive off.
yeah. Yeah, I'm like, and that's like a 35, but that's like, I mean, that's a 35, but she still pulled over, or they pulled over, and then just like did this U-turn thing. So yeah, I'm like, like if it knocked you off and you like landed on your back, no helmet, that's still like a doozy, and in front of all the art kids.
Yeah. Well, and because too, they didn't use any blinker or anything. They just pulled to the side and then did a sharp
Yeah,
U-turn, and I was right behind them too. So it's like even if it was a car, it was like they didn't even look to see if fucking cars were behind them and just decided to fucking pull a U-turn.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Um, Gosh, dude, you grew up in South Portland?
I grew up in Buxton.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So a little outside, but still that's like what, like 25, 30 minutes from Portland?
yeah, yeah. 30 minutes outside
But
Portland.
that's definitely more rural, that more like how I grew up. So growing up, did there get to be a point where like, one, how old were you when you learned to ride a bike?
When I learned how to ride a bike, I felt like I was late, like because all the kids knew how to bike in my neighborhood, and
Yeah.
like I was like skateboarding, so obviously like they would like take off ahead of me, and I would have to just skateboard. But I feel like I learned how to ride a bike at like 10 or 11, like,
Oh,
but
wow.
everyone started super early, and I was like, oh man. And like the way that I learned was being pushed down a hill,
Yeah.
just so to learn how to get that balance on.
By all your friends who could already ride, or kind
Yeah,
of, yeah.
yeah.
Uh, and then because for where I grew up in, like in a more rural area, which too, fucking skateboarding on those back main roads sucks. The tar is so
Oh,
terrible
yeah,
for it.
tar's bad, sand from all the winter like
Yep.
periods and stuff like that. And then I'm just like, oh man, skateboarding's hard. I'm like, no, these roads are bad.
Yeah. That's one thing I've noticed. There's some places around here that are terrible, but there's so much more like sidewalks that are not all fucking cracked up from frost heaves and shit like that. And also they can put down concrete for like roads or sidewalks where like everything in the Northeast has to be tar because it flexes a little more, but like a concrete road, because they don't have to worry about it cracking or anything, is so smooth and so much but it's why driving in the rain here is crazy, because some of the roads are fucking just flat concrete, and so the water just like pools right on it.
So it's just like, yeah, hydroplaning and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Is that an issue that you have biking there too?
What's that?
Like hydroplaning at all or anything like that?
No, I mean, one, it fucking rains 3 days a year.
Yeah, yeah,
So
fair.
I've only actually ridden in the rain, I think once or twice. The other thing too is I'm going a lot of times to shows, and I'm not gonna, if it's raining, I'm not gonna get soaked and then show up at a fucking show soaked. Like,
Yeah, man, just have it be part of the art piece. Be
yeah.
present.
Uh, but I one time, yeah, I rode. It definitely seems like way more water on the road, like especially where you are off to the side of the road. It's just like nothing drains. Like none of the roads are created to drain well. The second it starts raining, you get rivers down the side of the street, because like none of it is just goes off into into the soil or anything, because everything's fucking concrete.
Yeah,
Um, but yes, you growing up in Buxton, fucking. So you start riding, and what I was gonna say was, for me in Harrison, as soon as you could ride a bike, it meant you could go like 3 or 5 miles further out. Your like a reach of going over to friends' houses and shit like changed, and then the next thing was obviously getting a car, and you had more freedom.
yeah. Then you can
But
go towns and cities.
yeah, but some main places are so rural that even having a bike, you're like, I'm still not going to ride this, and it's still 5 miles to anybody else's house. What was it like for you?
Yeah, it was mostly, well, the first neighborhood I grew up in, like I knew everyone, so it was like literally like biking like just in the neighborhood, and it was like a nice like cul-de-sac style setup. Like there was like a circle, like a roundabout at the end of the road where I lived. So I just like bike around there. But for the most part, like yeah, I was like you had the bike that you would like just ride around the town with, then you'd have like the mountain bike so you could go do some trails behind
Yeah.
your house or something like that. But then it was like so rural that you had to be like you couldn't bike in like the hunting trails and all like that. So it was like very specific.
Oh yeah,
And
no biking in November.
then
No
yeah,
bike
no
November.
biking.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just like, yeah, no biking in the woods because of the hunters. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's fair. And then the other one would be because Buxton, there are biking trails now, but we used to like they weren't designated, which is my favorite part because you could bike from like Buxton to Saco, and that was all woods because my parents were like cool with it, like as long as you weren't like on the road because they were afraid that you'd be picked up by if I was biking a trail. Then I was just like, all right. And this is before cell phones, so they were just like, I don't know, they were just ambitious. They just gave me quarters and were like, oh yeah, if you get lost somewhere, just give us a call. But I still
Yeah.
I still I still bike pretty far. Like I remember biking from my house in Buxton to like Funtown Splashdown USA, and then biking
Oh
back.
damn.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and especially that last part on Route 1, that's not a real fucking friendly road.
yeah.
Yeah, now that when I just before I left Portland, there was one trail that I liked that was definitely newer. I think it's the Green Belt. And I would go all the way to Old Orchard Beach from South Portland, just on that. It crosses a couple of roads, but there you can take that trail. Like, I think technically they're trying to make it go Maine to Florida.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's different parts in different states that they're expanding and connecting, but just that one in Maine goes. I've taken it as far as Old Orchard Beach, but it goes further than that. I think it goes all the way to Kennebunk.
Yeah, you could definitely ride. I know you could ride that to Gangbunk because my friend was like, "Oh yeah, we could ride from a Gunkwit all the way back to Portland." I'm like, I don't want to do that
No.
because he's like, and then we'll go drinking in the Old Port. I'm like, if we go drinking in the Old Port and I have my bike here, I'm gonna need an Uber for my bike. So no.
Yeah. Oh, it was his plan was to ride home afterwards.
Yeah, he was like, so one of my friends, he did like a bike tour from like across the country from like Boston to California. So he's just like, oh yeah, dude, I bike drunk all the time. I'm like, I've bike drunk before. I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
I've definitely bike drunk before, but I have also, we had the idea one time, we used to have this place called Hawk Mountain where it was just like this field up on the side of a mountain that only trails could get to it or people with four-wheel drive, and we would have parties up there in high school. And we decided one day, like, in order to not drink and drive, we would ride our bikes there. And then when it was like 2 a.m, dark out, and we're wasted, and we're like, all right, ride home on these like mountain bike trails. And I think my friend made it fucking 4 feet and just like wham and fucking fell over sideways. And luckily there was somebody there with a truck, and they're like, you guys are idiots, put your bikes in the truck, I'll give you a ride.
No, I'm like, that's dangerous. I'm like, I'm definitely, because I've biked out of a pit party drunk, but I'm like, it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm definitely, because I've biked in New York, and like I definitely hit a non-moving car because I was drunk. I'm like, oh, it's cool, I could fit past that. It's like, nope, boom.
I wasn't drunk, but I was drinking a beer one time here in Hollywood, and I was riding one-handed up this street called Orange onto Hollywood Boulevard, right by like the Chinese theater and shit.
Yep.
And they had it all closed down for like a movie premiere or the Oscars or some shit like that. And I was riding up to right where the barricade started, and there was like probably 3 cops across the road standing at the barricade. And I was coming off of the sidewalk to cross the road, and the sidewalk was just a little bit further or higher than I expected. And I went to take it, and I saw the cops, so I like kind of hid the beer like this and like held it down under so they wouldn't see it. Come off of it and just drop a little bit further, and I fucking just flipped and fell off the side onto my back. And as I do, I turn up like this and just dump the entire beer on top of me, laying around, right in front of a cop. Right in front of the cop. Yeah. And he just laughs and is like, get the fuck out of
here. No, that's at least he's cool about that, man. I've seen like they like that whole because like they still have like the bike messengers in New York and stuff like that. So my friend has a couple of my friends have gotten like moving violations for biking and stuff like that. And it's so dumb because they'll pull up on, it's not bike cop in pursuit of you. It's a car. They'll be like, pull over, and then they'll like try to catch up with the bikers. But like if they know that you're not like a roadster or like a delivery guy, they'll just pull you over. But the roadsters, like they just so like make like the mask, I'm sure, are helping them now because like they can't be identified. But roadsters, they'll just like zoom off because they'll be like, oh, if like no company, no nothing, no brand and anything like that. So
And they can just look up and go, oh, there's traffic ahead. You're not going to be able to get by that. See you
yeah,
later.
exactly.
That's not good. I got a ticket in Boston once. I think cities like that are a little more here. I mean, here's the weird thing. For the most part, I think cops are like, dude, you're on a bike, fucking good luck. Like that's their feeling about it here. But they did just shoot that guy in fucking Compton who was riding a bike. But they'll also, that was like, you know, they said they were pulling him over for a bike violation. And it's like, no, it was a black guy. And you were just coming up with an excuse and he happened to be on a bike. But you don't, I rarely ever hear stories of people getting pulled over, and people ride through lights and shit all the time. And cops are like, don't care. And also you're just try not to kill yourself. Is like the only advice. But yeah, in Boston, I went, it was a 4-way walk sign in Cambridge. And so I went through it. So I didn't have to like, cause I had to take a left-hand turn on Mass Ave. And I was like, oh, since everybody has a walk signal, this is a lot safer for me. And I didn't cut anybody off or anything, like pedestrians. But the cop pulled me over, a motorcycle cop pulled me over and gave me a ticket he's like, you're supposed to follow the same rules as cars. And I'm like, dude, come on. Like, trying to take a fucking left there on a bicycle is way safer. But he actually told me to act like a car. And I was like, I'm a good actor, but I don't think they're going to buy it. Like, I'm not.
Just like beep, beep. I had my warning on. Yeah. Are you a big signal guy? Are you doing that whole thing?
No, not at all. Because I ride with the assumption nobody sees me ever. And I think if you take that into it, you go like, I'm not going to put my safety at the risk of them following the law. I'm just going to either wait for people to pass or, you know, turn or just cut in front when I know I can make it in time. But the fucking signaling and like, it's my turn to go. And you're like, you always lose if that person's not paying attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's not like a car crash where like you both might be okay. Like 100% of the times you're going to fucking lose.
Yeah. Exactly. That's my feel. I was like on that no brake life for a while where I never hit the brakes for anything.
Oh yeah. Well, my brother always had a saying, a philosophy he lived by, that if you go fast enough, you don't have to stop.
Yeah.
And if you think like, what if you are flying and you hit something, like you hit a car, you know, crossing in front of you, if you were going faster, you wouldn't have hit that car. You would have been before it. So it's pretty much, it's a foolproof philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely foolproof. I'm like, you can't hit anything if you're moving faster than them. I'm like, yeah.
Did you have siblings?
Yeah, I had 2 older sisters. So
older sister. Oh, so you're probably like a real kind, great with the ladies.
I guess that's a stereotype. I feel like I can talk to older women better because I can like diffuse that situation. And then my whole, like, if I'm talking to anyone my age or younger, it's like, I'm not interested. I'm like, there's no challenge here because I'm trying to impress you while I'm like, I know how to diffuse like older, like people, like that's been my whole life, just diffusing problems with like older siblings and stuff like that. So I'm like, all right.
Yeah. And what's the age gap?
For me and my sisters, one is, so there's 4 years between me and my middle sister, and then it's 6 years between me and my oldest sister. So
okay, yeah. So I have 2 older brothers, and they're 5 and 9 years older than me. So it's definitely like a gap, and I do it as a joke, but I do know that my parents were trying for a girl. And that's the only reason that I say I was either supposed to be a girl or an accident, because 5 years after, like, you're either doing it specifically, like you don't want another boy 5 years later after fucking 2 boys, but you clearly, your dad was like, let's give it one more shot, and he got
the boy,
got the boy he wanted.
Exactly. Well, I'm not sure if the boy won. I'm pretty sure he still wanted me. I'm pretty sure he wanted me to actually get a real job, not just like tell jokes about. So I got 2 older sisters, and I fuck cougars sometimes. So
are your parents still together?
Yeah. Actually, my parents just celebrated their 37th anniversary. So
hot damn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but so that means you and your dad, the male to female energy was only slightly outweighed, but definitely outweighed.
Yeah, it's so funny because I'm like, everyone's like, oh, because I have a estranged relationship with my dad. It's not like bad, but it's just non-communicative, and I think that's just like it's like a healthy relationship between me and my dad because what ended up happening was, because my dad, like, he ducks out of every conversation in a group text, and then he'll just like do his thing, and then I'm the only guy at the table who's talking, and I'm like,
Uh,
oh,
so yeah,
cool,
so really,
sweet.
yeah. Ooh. Now, is your dad from the Philippines? Did they immigrate here?
Yeah. They both immigrated here separately, and they met in Maine, which is still like it's
That's
still my
crazy.
favorite. That's still my favorite story ever.
Were they just
But
the only two Filipinos in Maine?
I'm pretty sure that's why my dad hooked up with my mom. I'm pretty sure my dad's pickup line was, I'm pretty sure, well, one, my dad stalked my mom through the Portland Press Herald. That's a fun story.
Go,
So,
please tell.
okay, so my dad's side of the family, they came to the United States because my grandpa fought in World War II. So he got his citizenship and stuff like that, and his family got ended up in Portland, Maine, because they had the naval base up there or whatever. So
Okay,
they
yeah.
were like, all right, we're gonna set you up here. So that's how my dad's side got over here. Then my mom, she and like three of her Filipino friends, like there were three girls, and they're like, we don't want to settle for the Philippines. We're gonna get out. So they like bounced around California and stuff like that. And my mom ended up working for like City Hall in Portland, Maine, like years later after like her friends like went separate ways. And
So
I'm
she
pretty sure,
like literally left with like she didn't come with her family. Her and just some friends were like, we're
yeah, it
trying
was
for it,
literally like three girls like moving out to like a big city, but the big city is like the United
but
States
they
and the
moved to the
Philippines.
U.S. That's crazy.
Yeah. And then what ended up happening was my mom's work was always through like City Hall and immigration. So she ended up working for like the Portland, Maine, like City Hall, and Portland, Maine at the time was celebrating their diversity at City Hall, which was just my mom.
Yeah.
And, and they posted a picture of her in the Portland Press Herald. And I'm pretty sure like no matter what, I'm like, everyone's like, oh, Tinder's creepy. I'm like, my dad pretty much stalked my mom, ran into her outside City Hall. I was like, you're Filipino? I'm Filipino. We should date. And that's it.
That's all I needed to say.
Yep. I'm like, hey, finding diversity in Maine is hard. So I'm just like, yeah, he found exactly it. And I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're how old are you?
I'm 29.
Oh, 29. Okay, so you might remember. I'm 35. I remember when it was when they started relocating Somalian, Rwandan, and Sudanese refugees
Yeah,
to Maine, and what a big like deal it was. I mean, definitely a lot of racist shit, but also just because it was a federal government program that chose these different towns, there was like this feeling of like the feds can't do this to us and force us to take in. But that was before that. Maine is white as fuck. Like that's the
yeah.
only real like full communities of cultures that have been moved into Maine or anything. There's no Chinatown in anywhere
Yeah.
in Maine. There's no other communities. It's like French or just fucking white.
Yeah, French Canadian is like the big, because French Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Oh, am
French,
I?
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
We did find out. My dad's side has some French, but no, mostly Scottish, Irish, English. Because
Okay.
my mom's from Boston, or from
Okay.
just outside of Boston,
All right,
and
gotcha.
her whole family was Irish and Scottish and English, I guess.
Yeah, because what is it? I was telling, because like now I'm bringing like New York comics up to Maine, and I have to like kind of explain the demographic because all they know about New England is Boston,
Yeah.
and it's funny because I found out a bunch of interesting stuff about Maine besides it being like the whitest state, because New York, there's a lot of Jews here. I'm like, Jews are like a new concept in Maine because we didn't have a big Jewish population either, which is
I knew a bunch of Jewish kids because of skiing, and they were all went to Gould Academy, a private school, but were
yeah,
from Massachusetts or Connecticut or something like that, and their parents sent them up there. And that's the only reason. Other than that, no, didn't know
yeah.
any. And I knew it maybe in Portland. I mean, but I didn't know. But in Portland, there, I think there's one synagogue, and there's a few, Jewish, little bit of a community, but not really.
Yeah, no, well, it's changed recently. Like, there's a lot more Jewish people like there, and it's so funny because of the Somalian refugee situation. there was a bigger Muslim community than that. And then also Maine is considered, I think it was like last time 2016, the least religious state, which is interesting to me because I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like I grew up in the Catholic home, but I was just like, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't know people who I was like the only one who went to church, and they're like, yeah, we go to church on like Christmas and Easter. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, whatever. But
And it's
it's
also, but
crazy.
also can be very conservative, but it's a very libertarian conservative. And I always found that like people might be, there's like a lot of pro-gun and stuff like that, but it's none of it is like anti-abortion, anti like
Yeah, yeah.
none of it is the religious side of the conservative element.
Yeah, because Maine is still like Maine has like a really big, besides like a big Muslim community that's like already there, and like like they're accepting like a big gay community, but also in terms of like guns, I'm like it's not like a liberal like conservative thing. It's like yeah, we have a deer overpopulation, so hunting keeps the population down. I was like all right.
Yeah, yeah, and well, that's the thing too is the guns that are in Maine are a lot more rifles, hunting stuff. I mean, it's not the problem is not handguns in cities.
Yeah, yeah.
There's fucking and anybody who gets shot, it's usually like a relative of theirs that shot them.
Exactly. Some vendetta stuff in Lewiston or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, there's some great. I've heard some news stories before of just like so and so slept with his brother's wife, and then he went and killed both of them or something. Like that's all the fucking
Yeah.
crime that happens.
And man, well, that's like the thing. I'm like, because I keep joking about it, where I'm like, if I don't want to ever get trapped in Maine, because if I stay in Maine, I'm gonna stay there. And
Doesn't
then
it feel like it? I have that same feeling. It's what has made me want to get out my whole life. I love it and it's beautiful, but it feels it's so easy to slip back into Maine.
yeah, no, as soon as you start settling, like you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I'll just be here for a little bit, and then all of a sudden, like 10 years of your life is gone. You're like
Yeah. And I saw it with so many people that I would say like half of my graduating class stayed in Maine. And then of that half that left, half of that ended up back in Maine because they like would go. I saw so many people like, I'm moving to New York. And then you'd see like 2 years later, they're just like, it was too tough. I just had it. It was like Maine was like ghouls. And they'd just like go back and be like, all right, I'm just going to rest up here before I go try that real world again. And then they just get stuck there.
yeah, I'll say this though, for the pandemic, not a bad place.
No, not at all. And I think it's a great place, but it's that mindset that takes over you to not go do explore more is
Yeah,
I see it a lot in Maine. And it's one of those I've always, and I think it's probably growing up in the woods too, you always just feel so isolated that I knew there was so much more of a world out there that I like didn't know anything about, but didn't want to be scared of. And I wanted to know more about it. So it wasn't like, I don't need those big cities. I'm like, I'm going to go figure those things out.
yeah. Did you ever get like diagnosed with like ADHD while you were in Maine? Because like that wasn't a thing.
No, I'm very dyslexic. That was all I made it out with. Why did you?
Yeah, because it's like it was so funny because like Maine is like one of those. It's like one of even though it is like super accepting. I feel like there wasn't like a lot of people I knew growing up who went to therapy or anything like that. Even like
No, not at all.
later generations, just like oh you'll get over it, like drink it, and then like but life doesn't change there. And like I remember I got diagnosed with ADHD in Maine, and then I moved to New York, and I'm like the more projects I could take on, like the more efficient I became at stuff. And then like my joke that I started writing about that was like do I have ADHD or did I just grow up in Maine?
Yeah, just in a boring ass place.
Just trees. But you like after I was like in the city, like I find it like you'd have to find your balance because I'm like I definitely can't be in the city like 24/7, 365 days a year. But also I can't be like cabin in the woods, like same
Yeah.
thing. So
That's
it's
why we chose LA over New York. A big reason was it's more spread out, more openness, and you can get into the mountains in 30 minutes, or we live now like a mile from the beach and stuff. And so you kind of, it's a lot of these really good, nice outdoor activities that I like because of growing up in Maine, but also has, it is a giant city
yeah, have a
and it
city,
has the
have a
comedy.
culture.
I mean, for comedy before COVID, it was pretty much like you had to go to New York or LA at some point.
Yeah, so I guess what my question is, how's the comedy scene coming up there? Because I see that you guys are doing some mics, some people are doing a lot of garage shows. I saw that what's his name? Jamar Neighbors. He does like a private thing in his apartment now.
Yeah, that got shut down.
Yeah.
He tried to do it once and it got fucking shut down. There's some, you know, the class of comedian spans such a wide, vast trough of people that there are people who think you shouldn't even be doing outside shows and call people stupid for going to those and stuff, even though you can, when you go to any of the outside shows here, you can be as safe as you want to be. Some people don't give a shit and they're huddled in groups, and you can just stand away from them and be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm not going to be around there. And some of the places too are that people have found to do shows are actually really cool. Like there's so many of these amphitheaters built into the parks and stuff that were never used for, it was, you know, people would just have picnics and shit there, but now they're actually being used as like amphitheaters.
Yeah, for stages and stuff like that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
There's the other end of full scumbags who are doing like underground, indoor, technically illegal, don't give a fuck, think it's a hoax type shows.
Yeah, yeah.
The clubs have been, like the Comedy Store's been trying to start doing it outside again, but again, this is the rumor, I don't know for sure, but they've been shut down every time they've tried. They
Yeah, yeah.
have their back parking lot and the patio open, and some people go up. So in the original room, there's a glass window that looks out onto the patio, and they've been having stand-ups inside with the speakers piping outside, but doing stand-up from inside through the glass window. And then also they have TVs in the back, and they'll play it out onto the TVs, and that's fine. That's legal. You can sit there at tables and watch that. But the second there's an actual person standing there, they've said that's illegal.
Okay.
And they've been trying now twice, got shut down. The city okayed it. The city of West Hollywood okayed it. The city of Los Angeles okayed it, but the county people shut it down. And and the rumor was that it was those comics who think anybody doing anything is dumb. Somebody called the cops on them, pretty much. Somebody, a jealous fucking petty comic has called the cops on them, and now a couple other shows around town. And I've been doing one now. We've had 2 shows, and we have another one next Thursday. Which if people go to Chirp and Turf on Instagram, they can get tickets to the show. But it's in a private parking lot behind a little event center, and so it's all closed off. You have to know where it is to get there, and we just have it all outside, like what you were doing. But they put down AstroTurf over the parking lot, and we just have, you know, spaced out tables and chairs set up, and that's been going great. And we limit the tickets so it can't get too many people back there, and we usually have 20-25 people in the audience, and then just like 4 comics on, and that's been great. And we figured out a loophole so they can't shut that down, because we're filming the whole thing to give comics all of their sets, and so we get to call it a production.
Okay.
And you can do productions. You can't have live entertainment, but you can do productions.
Oh, that's a fun loophole. So any LA comics who are listening who know me, I'm like, all right, that's yeah. Oh, that makes more sense now, because that's why what's his name? That's why John Moskowitz was filming his special there. Okay, got you in the garage. That makes sense.
But also we did a thing, and I think this is what a lot of people have figured out too, is because there are like these petty people out here, is you don't get the address unless you buy a ticket. So at least, you know, even if they want to shut us down, they got to fucking give us money to shut us down.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, we haven't heard anything, but a few others, they were doing it on the roof of Grand Central Market, a pretty big production, but it was all outside, and they just had more room to have it spaced out.
Yeah, was that like Gooftop Comedy or something like that? I think.
Well, Don't Tell did a show up there. It was a few different people. The Grand Central Market was allowing the space to be used by a few different productions. Or, you know, people producing shows. So like Don't Tell did one up there. I forget, a couple other people have done them. And then there's quite a few drive up ones. So it's just in cars, and they either play into their radios, or people just sit outside of their car.
Yeah, who's it? Matt Rife is doing that, right?
Yeah, he's got one. They have one at the Magic Castle, and they have a couple open mics that do that too.
Yeah.
And you just
How's
sign up online.
yeah, how's I guess have you done the drive-in shows at all? Or have you got
I have,
attempt to?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, I've done everything now. Those are the first things that I went back to, and wasn't bad. But it's comedy light. It's still
Yeah.
not the feeling. Even outdoor shows, like it's fun to kill and do well, but you realize that energy when it's packed back inside of a tight, low ceiling room again, like will just feel so much more.
Oh yeah, yeah. You could definitely have like that energy because I'm like the what was it? The Saco drive-through actually reached out to me because they were like, oh, like someone like referred me to them, and I'm like, oh, I'm not really interested in it because like I already knew the issues that would come up, like because I saw they were doing a bunch of shows in like Phoenix. Of like they were like the first ones to do a drive-through show. And I was like
Yeah.
watching that, and I'm just like, comedians were like, I was messaging comedians like, how was it? I'm like, oh, my cadence got thrown off by horns, like the flashing lights messed me up. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's why I'm like, I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think a few of my friends, Ali and Chappelle and stuff, did those. And they were like, it's okay. Just the outside stuff is just better when you can just hear people laughing and stuff. It's definitely better.
Yeah.
I gotta go in just a minute, but first, we gotta do this. We show these videos to everybody who comes on,
Uh,
and just to get your reactions, see how you might have seen some of these before. I guarantee you've probably seen one, but I don't know. This is what we start with. They're all crash videos, fail videos, if you will.
okay.
But with a little bit of a funny bent to them, a little funny element. All right. First up, there might be an ad here.
Dude, YouTube is getting vicious with
I know.
advertising. Have you subscribed to YouTube TV or YouTube Red?
No, not at all.
Never going to.
Be ready.
Ow! Bro! My ankles are broken! My ankles are broke!
His ankles are broken!
I got a broken ankle!
He's coming for you!
Just
So that one is definitely all about the sound. You just get why it's a terrible crash, but I just find it so. I find the last one too, where he goes, "I got broken ankles." Ah!
No, it's super casual, especially in like that like ski bum like voice. It's
Yeah.
just like I'm like it's a serious concern, but you sound pretty chill about it, man.
All right, next one. So these all funny in a little bit different way, and this next one I think you've definitely seen before if you grew up skateboarding.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah, let's go memory lane right here.
Yep.
This is like the PSA that mom showed you.
He's got his backup plan covered.
And can you guess what the funny element I find in this is?
Oh my God. Oh.
So you don't see it there. It happens too quick.
That
But
was
then
the
when they
heaviest
show the
slam we've
replay,
ever seen.
He's just
Right
going
here.
so fast. He's trying to adjust his
Trying
body.
to adjust his feet, and just trying to get his
got
board
pitched a
back,
bit
and
forward.
there it goes.
Oh, you saw.
you see his shoes go flying off.
Yeah. They rocket off like missiles. I remember this crash. This was like
was
when I
brutal.
was skateboarding.
Yeah.
My mom pulled this up, and it's like, is this what you want to happen? And I'm like, no. I'm playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater. I want to build up my special so I could do a 900.
Yeah. And then lastly, we have.
Okay, I might not know this one, but we'll see.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to ruin it with that. That's what happens, but
That's fine, no worries. That was just the after, not how it started.
Yep. We just got a couple guys practicing doubles, and boom.
Ooh.
And so this falls under the category of there's nobody there to turn off the camera.
Yep.
Which is one of my favorite categories on Instagram or something, is somebody going for it and you find out they were all alone. But here it's two people and there was still nobody to turn off the camera because they both got badly injured.
Yeah.
But so what happened? That gash that you saw at first, the handlebar turned and just stabbed straight into him.
Ooh, where did it stab into though?
Like right here, like.
Oh, so
Like,
right on the thigh.
Oh yeah, it broke the tip off of his hip bone and shit, and like almost sliced the fucking femoral artery and all that shit.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
Yeah, that's something.
Anyways, I got to run. I want to thank you very much for being on. Good luck to you, and for listeners, I got quite a few main listeners. If you got some more shows left, you got one more.
Yeah, I got one more. So if you guys are coming out to Thompson's Point November 14th, I'm going to be making an announcement on Halloween for that lineup, and tickets are going to go on sale then. But yeah, Thompson's Point, Cabin Fever with Empire Comedy Club at Thompson's Point, November 14th. Keep an eye out.
And what's your just Marcus Cardona?
Oh, yeah. And then you guys can follow me on all social media at Marcus Cardona. That's MarcusCardona.
Word. Yeah, check out his shit, and good luck with the freezing ass show.
Yeah, thanks, man. Hopefully we get to cross paths, get a nice 207 reunion.
Hell yeah. I was supposed to headline Empire back in June, and that obviously got canceled, but I'm hoping next year to be able to make that up.
Yeah, if you can come back to Maine in March, I think that's when they're starting. So,
All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, buddy. Bye.
Bye.